Good morning, chocolate orange time, and this time we have a little penguin. It could be Christmas themed. Doesn't have to be though. I know a friend who particularly loves penguins, so I know she just collects penguins, so it's great for a friend who's like that. But it could be a really cute Christmas gift too. Obviously, chocolate orange inside there, but it doesn't have to be a chocolate orange. It could be an apple, a piece of fruit. Great to put on maybe pieces of fruit for your children to take to their lunches at school, something like that. There's lots of different things. And also, it does stand really well without the orange in it. So you don't have to have the orange in it. So this is what we're going to use. I am using a double knit yarn. I am using a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. Obviously, scarf colour can be whatever you want. Penguin can be whatever you want. I've seen some quite cute pastel ones actually, but I decided to sort of keep quite traditional. That's why he's there. So these two are a glittery yarn. Again, they don't have to be. I just thought it added a little bit of sparkle, sort of give that icy feel. I have a little bit of toy stuffing here. That is, oh, I just squashed him because he ain't got the thing in, and say that is for his head. I have my needle stitch marker, a little bit of orange for the beak. And I am using these safety eyes. There's the backs to them as well. These are 6 millimeter. Let me double check that. I've got a pack next to me. Yeah, these are 6 millimeter safety eyes. But again, if you're making it for a younger child, I would recommend stitching on eye detail rather than either beads or these. But if it's for somebody sort of an adult or an older child, I think these are fine. They are safety after all, but check you're buying good quality ones of those. So I'm going to move them right over. Have some scissors, reaching across, nearly didn't have a pen and paper next to me to mark off where I'm going. So let's get rid of a few of these bits and pieces. And we're going to be starting with his body first. It is done in a few sections. We've got body, head, obviously eyes, beak, tummy, and scarf. So we've got lots of different sections there to do. It is amigurumi. It is a style that if you're not familiar with, might be worth doing a little bit of research, having a look at some amigurumi tutorials out there. I do have one, but there's a lot of others out there as well. So have a look at them, see whether you sort of like the idea. I love amigurumi because of its spiral reaction. And then there's no sort of joining, so you don't get any sort of ugly lines where you're starting a new round. So here we go. Unfortunately, this colour is an absolute nightmare for you guys to watch. So some of it you might need to listen to rather than see, because I will try my best. I've lowered the camera a little bit so you can see it. I've got some really good light on it, so I'm hoping you will. This will also be a pattern that I'm writing up, so if you do want the pattern, I'll get it. I'll try. I will. I'm not going to try. I will get the pattern done before I release this video, so you can buy the pattern as well if you would rather do it that way, because I know a lot of people, I know I like both. I like to watch and I like to buy patterns as well, so each to their own, however you prefer it to be. We're going to start with our slip knot onto the hook, not too tight, remember. Now again, if you're used to amigurumi, you're going to be very familiar with the combination of stitches and how I'm going to be doing this. I am going to be using half trebles though. There's a bit of my hair falling out there. I've just washed my hair, so I'm sat here with wet hair. So you can use half trebles for amigurumi, but it is predominantly seen as a double crochet. And remember, UK terms here, so if you need a conversion chart, go and grab one and then you can get started with it. It's not really any different, it's just a different word, that's all, but it's still the same stitch. So we've started with a slip knot, and I'm going to start with 2 chain, 1 and 2. Now into the very first chain we're going to be doing 6 double crochets. So into the space, pull it through, that's our first one. Let's have a look. So number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. As I said, this is where it's now going to get difficult for you to see it. So I'm going to sort of be saying which stitch we're going into, rather than you necessarily being able to see it that well. Now I am going to now switch to half trebles, so I'm not going to sort of stop start, I'm not going to slip stitch join, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be brave and just jump into this first stitch with 2 half trebles, because we're doing 2 in every single one of these double crochets, but these are going to be half trebles, remember. So yarn round for a half treble, finding that stitch, which I'm having a problem finding it as well. There we go. I'm going to pull it through. We end up with 3 on the hook, remember, and then we're going to pull through all 3. That's what makes it a half treble. Back in the same stitch and pull through all 3. So it's 2 half trebles in our first one. Now we want 2 half trebles in the remaining 5. So here is our second one. That's number 2 done. This is number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And our last one with 2 is number 6. So we now have 12 stitches, but those, remember, being half treble ones. So again, we're not going to start. We'll carry on our amigurumi spiral, and we're just going to jump straight into the next stitch. Now the next round is also going to have 2 in each. So at the moment we have 12. We're going to end up with 24 for this round. So yarn around into the first stitch and 2 half trebles. Yeah, that caught a little bit, that one. So that's our first one of 2. Our second one with 2. Yeah, our third one with 2. And number 4. Number 5. And 6. So we're halfway there now. Again though, at least with half trebles, they're slightly easier to see than double crochet, so that's another reason for using it on this black. So that was number 6. Number 7, so 2 in each, remember. That's number 7. Pull this yarn out a little bit. We have 8, I think. I've just lost count. This is number 9 I'm going for. I'm going to count them at the end of this. Number 10. Number 11. And number 12. Now again, at least because they're half trebles, they're going to be a little bit easier to count. Okay. Right, I have caught my yarn. Can you see I've caught my yarn there? But I'm not going to over worry because his head's going over that bit. So sometimes you do get away with things. If that was something that was going to be visible, I would undo it and redo it. So let me do a quick count to make sure I've got the 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Look, you see, I did have too many. 25, 26. So when I went wrong on my counting earlier, I had actually gone back rather than forward. So we now have 24 stitches. I definitely need to bring my stitch marker in now. So I've got a little snowflakey stitch marker to go with that sort of icy feel we're going for. In we go. There, it's quite a light one, this one, so it'll be quite good. Now we do have another increase round, but it's going to be 2 half trebles in this first one, and then just 1 in the next one. And you're going to do that 12 times because we've got 24 stitches, obviously. So put my hook back in. Don't need to worry too much about counting, but I will. But you can use your stitch marker now. So 2 half trebles into the first one. 1 half treble into the next one. And I'm going to be really good, and I'm actually going to mark this down. There we go. So that was our first one, and we've got 12. Yarn round, 2 in the first one, so they're like little sets. 1 in the next one. That's our second one. We have 2 in this one. This is our third set. And then a 1. We have a 2. we have a 1. A little bit of shadow I can see from the camera. There's not usually much of a shadow, but for some reason, I don't know whether perhaps I've got the light in a slightly different direction. So that was number 4 because I wrote it down, thankfully. This is number 5. So we have a 2. We have a 1. That's our 5th one. Next one, we have a 2. We have a 1. That is number 6. This is a 2. This is a 1. We have a 2. We have a 1. That was our 8th. We're nearly round. We have a 2. And we have a 1. That was number 9. Number 10 coming up. We have a 2. We have a 1. Set number 11. We have a 2. We have a 1, and look at that, we definitely got enough space for one more set before I get to the stitch marker, so I counted it right. So we have a 2 and we have a 1, spot on there. You should now have 36 stitches. Now from now on, I'm going to move the stitch marker up in a second. All you're going to be doing is half treble rounds, and you're going to have 8 of those. So if you were wanting to sort of skip ahead at this point, or maybe pause me, or sort of slow me down, or however you want to do it, because I am going to try and speed up a little bit, and I'm just going to do 8 rounds of half trebles. So again, I have my pen and paper ready here to mark it down. I'm going to move my stitch marker up so I know, and I'm going to move my stitch marker up X amount of times. So just keep moving it how you feel comfortable. And we're going to get going with our 8 rounds. And that doesn't look very big there. You're thinking, well, that's not going to go over the orange, but it will. It will be perfect. So there we go. We'll have a little try about halfway. Are you ready for this? 8 rounds of half trebles. Just going stitch marker to stitch marker. I'll just try and keep a steady pace. I won't sort of go too fast, but as I say, if you are a beginner, I think the best thing to do is pause me at this point, get your pen and paper and just do your 8 rounds and come back to me when you've actually done that. And again, if you're sort of happy to go in much faster than me, again, pause me, get your rounds done and come back, because the next stage will be its head. So you'll be able to see, if you fast forward the video, where I'm going to be redoing it. As I say, at least with half trebles, it does grow a little bit quicker. You can do it in doubles, but you would have needed more sort of increasing at the beginning. And as I say, this colour is hard enough to show up with the half trebles. With a double, it gets really sort of quite difficult to see. Just certain colours, although I don't think it's as bad as red. Red glares something awful on the camera. And unfortunately, because we're coming up to Christmassy things, there's going to be lots of reds and greens. So I usually have to mute down my colours for the videos, but whereas I would rather use like a bright red, but of course you can use whatever colours you want. You don't have to use my colours, do you? So it's like this. I'd consider doing a baby penguin in like a light grey. Thought that might be quite cute. So there are other options there with this one as well. So that's my first round knocked out there, and off we go for round number 2. It's not too bad actually on this table, because can you see, you can sort of see through the stitches. If you really do struggle, sometimes, I don't know if this is a plain piece of paper, it's not a plain piece of paper, but you could put a piece of paper and you can sort of see through the stitches a little bit better. Don't have it on a dark background, else you're not going to see it very well at all. So round number 2, off we go. Oh, nearly missed it. Thankfully, I've already taken some photos of this little fella to put on my thumbnail. because it does look like it's going to rain again out there. I know they have threatened a little bit of bad weather, as I know I mentioned yesterday in one of my other videos. I know it's nowhere near what other countries are getting. I hope you're all staying safe out there, because I know there's been some serious, really, really bad weather for some people. Off we go. You can see it's starting to curl round now, which is good because we need it to curl round our orange. I do need to get some more things done. I can't realise what am I saying. I realised how fast time is going, and it suddenly went, oh dear, you know, I've got to get some Halloween stuff out. Christmas projects need to be going, because obviously if you're going to be making for, yes, you can see the shadow quite a bit on that. Making for gifts, you need to get started, don't you? So I will try and get some more Christmassy things done, but I am falling behind something terrible since I decided to fall over and hurt my leg. But it's all good now. Well, it's getting good, put it that way. It's not fully good yet. I'm trying to catch up a little bit. Right, so I'm going to say I'm round because I want to move that stitch marker up. I've turned my paper over now. There we go. Because remember, because it's spiral, the start position will slightly alter, so it's important to keep moving it. So we're now on round 3. So we're doing pretty well here. I've not really timed how long it takes to make the penguin. And I suspect if you're making more than one, you'll be doing it in parts anyway. I know I have a tendency to do that. If I'm making more than one of them, I might make X amount of bodies and then X amount of heads. And then I always leave the sewing up till the last. Which seems fine until you have to sit there for about 3 hours sewing everything up, which is what I have to do at the moment. I've made loads of little dolly hats for when I go to DollyCon, the convention. And because I've got a stall there, and I keep looking, I'm like, oh, I've got to sit and sew it all up. This is the easy bit. I will sit and do this for hours. I like it when I have actually sewn them up. That's quite sort of satisfying to know something's finished. But when you sit and stare at something with all these little ends sticking out and you think, you know, I've got to sew them all in. In a perfect world, we should be organised and sew our work in as we go. And I have done that on a couple of things I've made. And you know it's great when you get to the end when you've got maybe only two ends to sew in. But I always promise I'm going to be organised. And I never am, but never mind. Sure, I'm not the only one. That was our 3rd round. Let's have a quick look on our orange now. Look, that seems to be sort of sitting comfortably now. Yeah. Obviously, your tension may be a little bit different to mine, so keep checking that it does fit on your orange in case you need less or more rounds. Or if you're a little bit too loose, maybe reduce down a hook size. That's another way of getting it a little bit tighter. And double knit yarn will work quite nicely with a 3mm hook. You have to sort of occasionally sort of watch for catching, you know, it can split it sometimes, but it does work quite nicely. I do use a 3mm quite a lot with DK. Oh, my stitch marker's going to annoy me, isn't it? It's going to start clinking on the table. Although we are a good halfway now, aren't we? So it shouldn't take too long. No, we are literally, when I finish this round, halfway. If you do slow me down in the settings to watch me, it may be worth turning the volume down, because I do sound as if I'm drunk when you do it like that, because it slows speech down, unfortunately, as well. Right, that is round number 4 completed. So we are a good halfway now. And again, shuffle your stitch marker up. And off we go again. Must admit, making this little penguin did give me some issues as far as his face was concerned. I did try a few different methods, but it just didn't work. And then I just realised I was just trying to overcomplicate matters. And I just went with just 2 little circles, and then obviously with the safety eye in the middle, instead of trying to shape it. And to be honest, it came out 10 times better than everything else I'd tried. I know sometimes people think you sort of, if you make patterns, that you just sit down and do it. Oh no, there's lots of bits that go in the bin and lots of torn up paper and lots of frogging, so you're undoing your yarn all the time until you get to something you're happy with. Every now and again it does just work. That's great. You go, finished. But sometimes the simplest of projects, you do and do and do, and it gets very frustrating. If you get like that, if you do create your own patterns, walk away from it. I find that's the best route. Just move away, come back to it sort of an hour or so later, go make yourself a drink or something like that. Preferably if you're coming back to it non-alcoholic, depending on how stressed you've got while you're doing it. But yeah, come back to it a little while later, and it's amazing the clarity when you come back to your work, or you might suddenly have an idea while you're having a sip on that cup of tea. Right, so that is another round done. That is 5. Shall we have, oh, I've just thrown him away, poor little thing. Put him there. Right, yeah, looking good, looking good. So we have 3 more rounds to go. I think my stitch marker's okay there. I think I might have to move it up the next round. Don't know whether anyone's staying with me at this point, if someone's fast forwarded. If you're still there, hope you're going okay with this. If you do have any problems, always pop me a comment in the bottom and I will try and answer it. Sometimes it's hard to answer a question regarding crochet in a written form, but I will do my best. Or if there's any other question or any suggestions. Yes, we're definitely clinking on the table now. Almost round. I can see the stitch marker glinting in my hands. When I get round to it, I do need to move it up as well. Right, so I'm going to say I am there at the stitch marker. So that was round 6. Move my stitch marker up. And we have just 2 more rounds to go. There is one very last round, which is just a double crochet round. But we only have 2 more rounds of half trebles. Don't worry if you can't pull through all 3 when you do this. You can sort of do it where you can go a 2 and a 1, something like that, however it works for you. Sometimes I find it goes through the yarn easy, like this is going through quite comfortably. Other times, especially if it's smaller pieces I'm working on, it just will not go. So I will do it as I've just described to yourselves in 2 sections, as long as ultimately this one strand comes through all 3 at the same time to create 1 stitch. That's all you need. At least when you've done the body, you know you've done the biggest bit. And everything else is smaller, so everything else is quicker. And also we'll be doing some other colours, which will be nice. Excuse me a minute, I just realised my thought I'd been organised. I was gloating, wasn't I, that I'd actually got a pen there, but my drink is actually out of my reach. But I'll be okay. Right, this is our 7th. 7 is finished. Right, we have one more round before we do a double crochet round, and then you finish the body. So this is our last round of half trebles. In fact, it's our last round of, yes, I'm just looking at the scarf. No, I did do it all in double crochets, but yeah, it's the last round of half trebles, full stop. Because the little head is done in double crochets, because I'm going to be stuffing it, and half trebles don't work well if you're going to be stuffing something, because you will see the stuffing coming through. Split that stitch there. Always undo it if you do that, because otherwise you end up with a bit sticking out like that. It's only one stitch to undo, so it's certainly worth redoing it, even if it means you have to keep doing it on multiple times. It will make your work neater. Although on about making various things, I do have to make some cream egg covers. Well, that seems a bit mad, but I do have to make some. And I've lost my cream egg. I haven't got the faintest idea where it is. And this time of year, I'm not going to be able to buy a cream egg. I have put it somewhere safe. That's really useful. But where, I do not know, because in this room, it could be in 101 different places. Careful there, I went into the actual hole rather than the stitch. Right, so we're round. We're now going to check the sizing on this. You can see I'm happy with that, but I want to tighten it just slightly so it doesn't fall off. So I'm going to do one round, just one, of double crochet, and then we can fasten off the body. So remember, now we're going to double crochet, so it's just 2 and through. I nearly tried to wrap then, not singing. I don't mean that sort of wrapping. I nearly went to wrap my wool, because the thing is, when you've been doing a certain stitch, you sort of get into the habit of doing it. But no, these are just double crochets, and the only reason they are is because the double crochet stitch is tighter than our half treble, so it just nips onto that orange a little bit better. Just back to that stitch marker, and then I will finish off with my slip stitch, because that's how I like to finish my rounds, and then we can fasten off. And if you're being organised, you can sew in the ends, but I won't. You don't need to see me sewing in ends as well. Here we are, last stitch. Why do I always do it on the last stitch? There we go. Now last stitch, and then a slip stitch to finish. So we have our orange's body, our penguin's body. So let's take that out and let's squeeze it over the orange. I'm just going to tuck these in for now. Like I say, you don't need to see me sew these ends in. There we go. So he's got a nice cozy little cover there for our chocolate orange. And next we need to work on his head. So we'll just leave that to one side and let's get going. Again, amigurumi all the way, and obviously not as big as this, so it's not going to take us as long. So we need that slip knot onto the hook. We're going to do our 2 chain, 1 and 2, and we're going to do 6 double crochets into that first chain, just the same as we started at the top there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, I think I've split one there. I'm going to take it out because it's top of his head. We don't want to see any split yarn, do we? So that's our 6. We are now going to do, as before, 2 in each, but they're only going to be double crochets this time. So finding that first stitch is always the hard one with the dark colours. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in each. That's our first one. 2 in our second. 2 in a third, 2 in number 4, I'm not happy with that stitch, I'm taking it out, 2 in number 4 again, 2 in number 5, and 2 in number 6. I hope it doesn't irritate anybody when I do undo it and redo it like that, but I do believe that the video should be a little bit warts and all, just to show that, you know, everybody makes mistakes. So we need to tighten up that middle bit so we don't get that hole. If they have issues tightening that up, you can always sew it in after the fact. Make sure you fasten it off if you do that. We're going to do another 2 in each, so we've got 12 at the moment, so 2 in each is going to make us 24. Off we go, 2 in each of the 12. So that's a 1. This yarn doesn't like me at the minute. That is 2. And number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Remember, this is 2 in each. Number 6, even though I'm counting a single number. Number 7. Let's split again. I'm going to be cursing this wool in a minute. 8, 9, 10. My voice is going. I'm going to have to get that drink in a minute. 11. And 12. So we now have 24 stitches. So as much as you won't see the pause, I'm going to quickly pause while I grab my drink. And I'm back. I have my glass bottle now. I bought this bottle. I thought it was really pretty anyway. I'm trying to make myself drink more water, which I don't. It's really bad. So I'm going to have a quick sip. You could hear the water sort of go down then. I'm really bad for consuming water, so I've bought this to have on my side while I'm working, and the aim is I have to finish it at least while I'm in my room. So there you go. So we're now going to actually do just double crochet rounds. So we can bring in our faithful stitch marker or a little bit of yarn if you've not got a stitch marker at hand. There we go. And you're going to do 5 rounds of just 1 double crochet into every single one of those stitches. So it's not a bad one, this one. So considerably smaller than the body, so it will not take us too long to do. So just 1 double crochet. So again, I know you're probably skipping forward here to get your 5 done, or you're pausing me, so I'll either see you in a few minutes or keep going with me if you wish. At least there's not as many stitches, because in theory it's 24 stitches. So if you wanted to be really good and count 24, I'm just going stitch marker to stitch marker, but you could, if you've got sort of a bit of peace and quiet somewhere with no interruptions, I think counting's a good idea. I do count if I'm on my own like that. Almost round for number 1. Stitch marker does get in the way at this point, but when you've done a couple more, you'll be okay with it. Ooh, Oh, get out the way. Right, so that's our round 1 of our 5. And off we go for round 2 with the stitch marker still getting in my way. Just having a nosy then how we're going for time. I'm not particularly going to worry about the time. I'm just going to work it at whatever pace I go at. But I was just curious. It rings 35 minutes on the camera, which to be honest, that's not bad, is it? That's not bad at all, considering the first sort of few minutes I was just talking. Was that stitch a bit thin though? I think we'll be okay. Almost back to that stitch marker again to have a fight with it. And we're round. So that is round 2. Mark it down, my faithful pen and paper. As you can see again, it's starting to curl round, so it's going to be fitting on top of his head. So off we go with round number 3. As you can probably see, it's harder to see the stitches at this point. Sometimes, depending on the yarn, I'll feel for the stitches rather than sort of see them. But that just comes with practice. But definitely have a light background behind your work if you're doing it like this. Wool's rolling away there. Stitch marker's not getting in the way as much now. I mean, you can move the stitch marker up if you wish. I'm not going to over worry for the sake of 5 rounds, because that's already round 3. Yes, it will have changed very fractionally, the positioning, but I think you can sort of guess is the wrong word because it makes it sound like you're not doing it properly. But you do get to a point where you sort of can realise where your stitches are, and if you were counting them, then you'd know exactly where your 24 was anyway. In fact, that's something you could try doing just to see for yourself how far that stitch marker will actually move. If you kept doing just rounds of, I mean, start it smaller, perhaps rounds of 12, and leave your stitch marker in place, you will actually see how it will reposition the starting point. So this is number 4, wasn't it? Yay, we've only got one more round. And then I think, can't decide what to do first. Shall we do his tummy next? I think we will. We'll do his tummy next. That's another big piece. I'm inclined to start with the big pieces and then work it down, because then you know you've got less to do when you get to the little bits. So we have one more round. This is our last round for our little penguin's head. Oh, I've got a call coming through. I'm going to have to ignore that, I'm afraid. I know it is, so I'll call them straight back when I've finished. She'll guess what I'm doing anyway, because I'm usually pretty good at answering the phone to everybody. Nearly there. Couple more to go. In fact, I'll say that's my last one. Slip stitch. And we have done the head. We can take our stitch marker out because we're going to need that for his tummy. And ta-da! Obviously when it's stuffed it'll hold a bit better than that. So that yarn can go to one side, and as I said, I think we'll start with his tummy. We'll get everything crocheted before we start putting anything together. Now, I do find, I don't know whether it is the case, but I find these yarns with the sort of like the thread through them, sort of the glittery thread, they seems a bit thinner. It seems thinner than this one. It is a different brand though, so it could purely be that. But as much as I love this brand, this is my Starcraft, they don't do a sparkle, and I do like a sparkle, so that's just a preference for me. So again, slip knot on the hook. It's going to be almost exactly the same. We have 6 in 1. So we do our 2 chain and 6 double crochets into that very first chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Don't worry, can you see how that opens up? Don't panic about that, because that's the thing with the slip knot. The whole point of it is then you pull it up tight. But if you don't want to pull it up tight straight away, it can sometimes help. So we're now going to do 2 in each. So that's our first one. So 2 double crochets in each of those 6, giving us our 12. So that's our first one. Our second one. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And our last one, number 6. So now we have 12 stitches going round. Again, just tighten that up nice. Again, you can fasten it off at the back after the fact, just makes it a little bit tighter. We're going to do another 2 in each to give us our 24 like we did before. So 2 double crochets into each of those 12. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, halfway there. Number 7. No, oh, caught again. That was number 7. Remember 7. Next one's number 8. Number 8. Number 9. It doesn't like me, this one either. Something wrong with me today. Number 10. Number 11. And number 12. So we now have 24 stitches around. So all we're going to do now is 2 rounds of 1 double crochet in each. So again, we are going to need a little stitch marker, unless you are counting the 24 stitches, but obviously I'm going to get distracted not to do that. So here we go, 2 rounds, just 1 double crochet into each. Just nice and steady. I do love this sparkle one because it's sort of more of a, I don't know, would you argue an Aurora Borealis? So it's like a mixed one. It is a silvery glitter, but then we have sort of like a pink shade. There's a green shade in there. It is definitely one of my favourites. If you've done my other videos before, you will know this, because whenever there's an opportunity to use a white colour, I will pick the sparkle one. We all need a bit of sparkle occasionally. Almost round. I'm just looking at this, then looking at that one's tummy, and that doesn't seem big enough. It's got to be. That's what I've written down. We'll see anyway after we've done the next round, and we'll decide. So I think you guys are my pattern checkers really while I'm doing this, because I have the sort of draft next to me. So if there's any problems with it, I can then alter it from there. So that is 1 round. Another round. Sometimes misleading, you think there's not going to be enough and you do it and you go, oh, actually it's more than big enough. Because also when you stitch them on, depending on how you stitch, it does expand the size of what you are doing. So there is that as well. Because your stitches that you're stitching on with make it look a little bit bigger again. We will compare with the other one's tummy in a second when we get around. So we are almost there. last stitch, and let's have a look, because you can see it's curling, but that's okay because this is rounded, so it sort of fits on the tummy. No, it's okay. Look at that, it's just an illusion. So I need to do my slip stitch to finish. So it was 2 rounds. There we go. Now I want to leave enough yarn here to sew all the way around, so make sure there's plenty of yarn there. Makes it easier rather than having to sort of set up another sort of set of threads to sew it onto the body. So there we go. So we now have body, we have head, we have tummy. We need eyes. Now you'll be glad to know I've already done one eye, because obviously they're both the same. So we can just quickly do an eye now. Now for the eye, it's going to start exactly the same, but even smaller again. It's just like you're doing a tiny version of the stomach, really. So slip knot, 2 chain, 6 in 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and we're just going to do 2 double crochets in each, and then that will be it. So here we go. That's our first one, second one, third one, oh, how are we going there? Don't know what I'm doing. That's 4. This is number 5 and number 6. As I say, like with all my others, I finish off with a slip stitch, and I just knocked the camera then, didn't I? Right, again, leave enough on. You don't need as much, obviously it's a smaller area you're sewing on, and that is the eye. So we have 2 eyes now, so that yarn can go to one side, and we're going to pull in this tiny little bit of orange here. The beak is even smaller, so he needs a cute little beak there. Onto the hook with our slip knot, 2 chain, you guessed it, and yes, 6 double crochets into the first one. The beauty of amigurumi. 1, second stitch, and I've already split it. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And now we're not going to go any bigger than that, because obviously the beak is only tiny, but we have to do 2 rounds into those 6, which can be a bit fiddly and a little bit annoying when you're doing it, but you will get used to it. So into that first stitch, pull that one nice and tight there, and it's just one double crochet into each of those 6. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See how it's curling up on my hands? 6. So now that's a little bit of a pain to get into for our next round. So what I then do is make sure I push it out, because if it's pushed out, which is the direction you need it to be anyway, it's easier to see the stitches rather than trying to sort of pick them up in the other direction, because it just absolute nightmare if you do that. So 6 double crochets again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I'm not going to worry about that slip stitch because you're not going to see it in this situation. I'm going to cut it off so I've got enough to actually sew it on him. And I'll just do a little knot there. Now you're thinking, well, that looks nothing like a nose, but again, push it to the right side and just sort of give it a little sort of roll if you can. It's only tiny, but sort of roll it round, and you can see how we can then get a beak shape. Sometimes you do have to manipulate the yarn to get a shape required. Now our final piece of accessory for him is this, and again I've gone for that sparkle. Look at that pretty sparkle. Can you see that on camera? I think you might. I can't really tell. Yes, you see there's a bit of a sparkle there. So all I'm going to do with this is a chain first, and I'm going to chain 50, which is a bit boring for you to watch, I know, apologies for that. So here we go. It can be as long as you want, to be honest. I did 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we're about halfway there. 21, 22, 23, 24. Keep moving your fingers up. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We've just got 20 more to go. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39 and 40. Our last 10. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49 and 50. So we have a chain of 50 there, and all I'm going to be doing in that, I'm only going to do the first row for you because again you will know what to do with that. So we're going to be doing 1 double crochet into each of those chains, so I will do that with you now. So just double crochet, remember, just a double crochet. Sometimes getting into the chain can be a bit tricky. That is why it's important to practice your chain to make sure you've got a really good chain. I'm going to have another drink in a minute. I think it's because I'm non-stop talking, aren't I? Which is not usually a challenge for me. But obviously your throat does get dry after a while. Now it curls, which is very annoying. If you just sort of just pull it, it straightens out quite well, so it's not in your way anymore. But yeah, it does curl as you're trying to do it, so you do have to straighten it every now and again. Yeah, we're almost halfway. Again, I went for this sort of, you can almost say it's like a frozen colour, couldn't you, if you like your Disney. It's like Elsa's colour. Elsa, Anna. You know, I always get the names wrong way around. That's terrible, isn't it? But yes, you know what I mean if you are a Disney fan. It's an icy blue. I had contemplated giving him a red scarf, but I didn't know whether it did sort of clash with the beak, so that's why I went with the icy colours. There's again. Give it a little pull, make sure it's nice and straight. You need it nice and smooth for his scarf. Your second round is going to be exactly like this. I just wanted to explain at the other end just to make sure if you're not sure about the turns for this, because obviously we've been working in a sort of spiral fashion, so we've been working in rounds, and now I've jumped to working in rows. So I just wanted to check that you are happy with that little bit. I'm sure some of you have already finished the scarf while I'm talking. Again, give it a little stretch. Couple more to go. And we've got about another 10 have we? Number 8, something like that. Split. There we go. Caught it though. Another split. I'm telling you, these yarns have got it in for me today. Yeah, again though, I mean, I was moaning about the black and that's been a single colour and that was still splitting, but if you've got like an extra thread in it, they can split even more. It's worth it though for the sparkle. Right, so that's our last stitch. Give it a little pull. Now to go back down the other side, you need a chain. Now I chain before I turn my work. Then I turn my work, and if it is a double crochet, I need to go directly below for my first stitch like that, and then just 1 double crochet all the way along until you get to the end. So you can see that's about the thickness of my previous scarf. Just put that tight there. So I'm going to leave you to carry on all the way along there because we need to discuss popping this together more than anything else. So I'm going to pop that to one side. I'm just going to grab my water. It makes a strange plopping noise every time I sort of tip it up. Because the biggest thing I need to discuss is fitting these eyes, because it's a bit of a weird one. So let's bring in the needles and the eyes. There should be another back there. There we are. Because I actually have to put the eyes on before sewing these bits on. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Right, so we've got some stuffing to do. But first of all, these eyes need to go on. So I'm just placing them. Can you see sort of that bit of yarn there? And that is where I want that one. And I'm just going to push this safety eye through. Sometimes it's a bit hard, so maybe do it bit by bit. In fact, I'm just going to push it through the white first and then through. So I know that's where I want it, but I'm going to check that I'm happy where the other one's going to be positioned first. So I'll push the eye through. I want them next to each other. Yeah, because when you sew it together, that will sort of pull together a little bit anyway. So I'm happy with the eye positions. It looks more like an owl at the moment, doesn't it? So taking that, now with these, they are dome up. Yours might be different. Please check your instructions on whatever safety eyes you buy. So that's one click. Now I normally do 2 clicks, but because if I can do it, it won't stay still. Keep still. There we go. Because there's 2 thicknesses, I'm only actually doing 1 click, because it would pull it too tight otherwise, and it looked like his eyes were pulling inside his head, which looks very uncomfortable. So that's 1, and then the big click. There you go. So you've got the positioning for that now, as strange as he looks at this point. Now it is up to you whether you sew these eyes on now or if you sew the head on first. Now I actually sewed the head on first. It made it a little bit more difficult to work with, but it made the positioning of his eyes better. So obviously we don't need that center one, so we can push that in there. But I'm going to use the piece that I'd left there to sew onto him. Also, I will sew it onto the orange. This is why I have a spare orange that, I mean, this poor orange is looking so battered now. But I use the same orange over and over for practicing or making my items. So it's worth having that spare one. Tempted not to eat it, that's the problem. So we have to position him. Now, the other thing I do is I will sort of just hold the top of his head like that while I'm stitching it into place. Now I do find it hard, as I've mentioned before, stitching and on video, because I'm having to hold it away from my body. I normally hold it really close, and that's a little bit hard to do in this scenario. So however you stitch on, I want to do part of it at least. So I'm just picking up a stitch on the head and a stitch on the body. Yep, a stitch from the head. I mean, you can start doing it like that as you get into it, but basically it's one from each side. Now, obviously, when we get to these eyes, it gets a bit of a pain because they're in the way. Try and follow the same round. And if I sort of put his head back into position, you can see I'm following the top of this bit here. So you choose where you're following and double check every now and again that it's not sort of skewing over to one side. Although he'd probably look quite cute with his head slightly to one side. I do actually think I'm going to run out of this. Oh, it's leave enough there. I haven't, clearly, which is very annoying on my behalf. But all you have to do is grab another piece of your yarn for the colour you require and thread it through, but just make sure you've got a good knot in there. Make sure it's nice and tight because you don't want it coming undone. You see how it gets in the way? How the eyes are getting in the way now. So if you wanted to stitch them on, please do, but I just found it better to actually stitch them on afterwards. It was worth putting up with this bit to be able to stitch the eyes into position. Right, what I'm going to do is, because I am about any second now to run out of the yarn, so I'm going to make a knot there, because I don't need that coming undone, do I? It's already come out. And I'm going to shove that in there. I'm almost round. There was just that little bit there. So where's my stuffing? Because obviously you need to leave a little space to be able to stuff. Otherwise, it will have defeated the object of making the head separate. I think it needs a little bit more. I say it does look more like an owl than a penguin at the moment. But we'll stuff a little bit of stuffing in there. This is a toy grade stuffing I use. Obviously you might have a particular brand you like or whatever you like to use. But I like it to be something that is washable. Not that probably this would get washed, but it is something that needs to be thought about. So I need to continue sewing this poor little guy's head on over there. But I wanted to show you for the eyes, that was all as well. So I'm going to take... not that needle, that's the wrong one, this needle. Okay, so again, same as with the body. I'm going to pick up a lower bit. And not instantly, it pulls it down. And I'm going to just pick up this outer piece. Now, sometimes I pick up the inner, sometimes I pick up the outer. It depends what I'm making. And we just... the difference this makes. Sometimes you can't really see how a project is going to work until it is stitched together. I think that's why, as much as I say I don't like sewing up, it is quite a nice feeling when you have, because you look at it and go, yeah, that's what I wanted. So I'm just picking the outer part of the stitch and a little bit from his head. I'm just going to change my stitch position because I'm going round it. Now, sometimes that happens. Watch for loose stitches. So it's very hard trying to stitch away from your body because I've actually got him, what, a foot away from me rather than close up. We're nearly there. Can you see? Because see how the difference, and the difference that makes is just amazing. I don't know why that stitch is caught in there. I think somewhere, can you see how the thread, you know, when I've sewn his head on, it's just caught in there, so I can get rid of that because it's not actually affecting anything. I'm just sort of tucking in a little bit. There's always a way with crochet. I'll just always make sure it's thoroughly solid so nothing's going to come undone. Right, I am round with his little eye. That's the first one. So I now need to just do like a little knot. Make sure that's not going anywhere at all. And then I'm just going to thread it through. And as you know yourself, thread it through a couple of times. Make sure it's not going anywhere. And trim it off. So that's the one eye sewn on. So you can see what difference it makes. Poor little thing. He's got his stuffing coming out of his head this side and his eye falling off. But that is basically what you need to do with both eyes. And the same is same for the nose, really. Now, I use the centre bit to position a nose or a small part. So I'm just going to push it all the way through. It's not sewing it on, it's just holding it. Let go. And then shape the nose as you would. Okay, so you can see it's there. And then use the long piece just to sew around and make sure the nose stays in position. Same for the tummy, is the same as the eyes. So it's just position it where you want it and stitch it into place. It's exactly the same process, so I don't really need to show you that. So it's in a poor state. I'm going to have to sit and finish him after this, aren't I? I can't leave him like that. And where's my half a scarf? This is half a job bob this today. Now, as far as the scarf is concerned, you could have made it longer if you wished. I'm going to pinch him off the orange and we'll just use our original one for the demonstration. You can see how tatty the orange is getting. It's been rattling around in a box. So as far as the scarf was concerned, all I did literally was I just went round, crossed it, and I just stitched a couple here and a couple here. So, I mean, if I did, look, you can see that is actually loose. If you want to stitch all the way around, you can, but it's really not necessary. It does stay. And I think sometimes if something stands out, it gives a slight more 3D effect rather than everything being stitched really close to the item. So I just stitched a little bit here, a little bit here, and it stays on lovely from there. So I think that's about it. I hope I've explained all that. There was a few odd little bits and pieces with this one, wasn't there? I will you'll be glad to know I will finish this poor little chap in a few minutes, but I think I need to get the pattern typed up for everybody first, so as I can pop it on at the same time as doing this. If you did enjoy my video, please like, subscribe and share. It does mean a lot. Click on that notification bell and you'll get to see when my other projects come up. As you know, I do not just crochet. There's a lot of doll things, so I know some of you will only want the crochet and some will only want the dolls, but then some will want the doll crochet. So it's a little bit of an eclectic mix there. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So once again, thank you very much for watching. If you're on Instagram or you do some of these, or you sort of on my Facebook, something like that, send me a link, show me some pictures. Let's see what you've done. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye for now.